All right, happy Monday to you. So what I'm working on today, and I'm going to be showing you how I kind of do some of the application design, data modeling, the UI modeling. And it's a very simple method, helps me think through things. I don't use any fancy tools. So I'm going to be talking about this app called ChartDensity. I just have the folder or the app name right now is Chart. And it's going to be a monitoring application, a data visualization, very simple. I'm trying to keep everything very simple, trying to not make any mistakes that are going to make version 2 hard, but want to get version 1 out very fast. And so what I started with was initially the schema, which I only needed one table. Using K2, I have a lot of the components available that I'm going to need for this application, and you'll see that in a minute. And you can put things together and build applications very easily using K2. So first we have a data sets table, and this is the idea of when you're collecting metrics and things, you got to have a way of grouping them into some logical groups. So you may have a data set called performance metrics for server, and you're going to or then you might have one called stock market. I don't know. So anyway, it's a logical grouping, and I still have that name Statzilla. I don't know if that works, but in K2 we have something called K2 stat, and basically it has a bucket. So a data set equals a bucket. So every time a data set gets created, we're going to create a bucket. But this is the only table we have. So you as a user of the application will start with a default data set. We do that just so the UI has some information in it already, and we don't have to start from blank. We always have something, a placeholder, and that's the default data set. And that would just be metrics about your account. So that would be like, well, how many data sets do I have? How many metrics are in those data sets? How many metrics a minute am I pulling, and things like that. So it's kind of just a dashboard for the app. And then we have this Apptest.SQL. And what I've tried to do is initially think through this application without a UI. I know what people are going to do in the UI. We're going to create an account. And when I create an account, certain things should happen, even before the UI exists, because I kind of have an idea of what the UI looks like. So we're going to get a token, for example. We're going to need a token that is our default API token or something. I'm not actually sure how I'm going to use the token yet, but we have a service in K2 called token. It's very rudimentary at this point. It'll get more sophisticated. And the way I like to make it more sophisticated is build an application that drives my needs and then make improvements to the underlying framework that is available for everybody and for future applications. So we need to get an API token because we're going to be making calls to push data into this application, like from a curl command. So you could write a curl command, you'll need your API token, you'll need to know the name of the data set or the data set ID. It's undecided whether it'll be a name or an ID that you use, and then you can send data to this application. We need a contact group, and we need a contact. Those are things built into K2. So I'll show you the code for that in a second, but you can see I didn't have to write much code at all to get all this. Then our test here is to verify the contact's a member of the contact group. Then we need an alert priority group. Alert priorities are, you have an alert group, or you have an alert priority group made up of priorities. And so I thought, well, we're just going to initially I thought we're just going to have one alert priority group. The user only gets that one group, and then they can kind of manage the priorities in that group, and then they can assign that to a contact group. They link the priority group to a contact group, and then they link data set to contact group. So then whenever something happens in the data set, oh, this is who we need to notify in the contact group based on, and based on the priority that we've just seen, this is how we're going to notify them. So if we go to our application code, I'm just going to look at the header. We have basically create data set, and then we have after create account, before delete user. There's some collect metrics and stuff, but basically it's mostly operations on this data set. And if we go look at create data set, or after create account, let's look at after create account. What are we doing? So you can see here we're making use of K2. We're creating a token called with a key of default token user ID, so that gives me a unique token for each user. And we're creating a contact group. We're creating a contact. All these are getting unique keys based on the user ID. We're adding the member to the group. We're creating a priority group for alerting. We're adding the priority group to the contact group. So we're linking everything together. And then we're creating a data set. And we could go look at that code. We have something called protected data sets. So we're creating a protected data set. Here's the default data set, meaning you can't delete it. So that's so a lot of this is just all going to change, but this is just helping me think through what do we need to do? What do we need to do? We're creating a bucket. So this is where we create the stat bucket in what used to be called StatZilla, still is kind of StatZilla. And ChartDensity could easily be named StatZilla, and maybe we'll change the name someday. There's actually some interesting information. Naming things Zilla, you have to be very careful with. Apparently, the trademark holder for Godzilla really enforced that. And so what I learned was, in researching that a little bit, is that if you use StatZilla, don't use anything that looks like a dinosaur or a monster. Just leave that off. You can use Zilla, but you can't add that kind of added item to your graphics and your logos, which is unfortunate because I actually I had one of the AI deals design a logo, and it designed a really cool logo with like a dinosaur climbing up a bar chart, and I thought, oh, that's cool, but it would be unusable really. So that's what we've got going. So I go from here, and now this has been sitting here for a month or so, maybe more, as I've been doing other things. And if you're asking what about the last application, I do work on multiple applications at a time. And that's the beauty. One of the things I love about K2 is it really, I can just jump around here, right here. I don't need to get another repository and all that. And everything's kind of greenfields because I'm really working on K2. This is all driving work on K2. But I was working on something called, it wasn't Bastion, but something like that. I changed it to Scout. And what I've decided with that application is it's really too big for me to handle by myself. And it would require a lot of money to develop. There's no easy version 1 for this particular application. So what I'm going to do is build a deck. And I'm working already, getting feedback from people and kind of telling them what it is, and then hearing them give me feedback and let me know, what they think. And I'm trying to hear what their misunderstandings are, where I need to be clearer, and that kind of stuff. So I'm doing this in round 1. In round 2, we'll go that same thing. I'll refine that a little, the kind of script, because that's all I sent out is basically a script. Maybe I'll add a few, mock-ups or something like that, very simple, and explain it again. And then I'll go to a wider group of like level 2 people that I know, so people who I wouldn't want to bother quite yet. And if that goes well, then we'll either go to like level 3, or I will try to recruit somebody to do a kind of more professional slide deck. I'm not really good, as you're going to see in a moment, at spending a lot of time making things look. In fact, I spend too much time trying to make things look pretty, and they don't look pretty when I'm done with it, because I'm not good at that. I'm good at seeing things and going, oh yeah, I really like that, but I'm not good at creating those things, or I don't have the patience to do it. Don't really have the eye. It's not natural. It's very, very hard, and always has been. And one of the beauties of Oracle Apex, and I think what its strength is it allows people like me to actually get a version 1 of an application out. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to make something that looks like it could be the next Airbnb. I'm just looking for something that would say, look, this could be built. And the back end works great. And the front end, I'm not good at that, but I got something working for you. So I think that the beauty of the beauty of Oracle Apex is that it reduces friction, as friction has prevented me from building lots of things over the years because I just don't want to learn CSS, HTML, all of these widget libraries and whatever's hot, and changing, and I'm just not going to spend a lot of time doing that. So I've always looked for tools that allow me to build things on the web easily. I've played with Flask, which is a Python web framework, and it falls short, and you still have to do a lot to get a good looking UI. And the UI libraries are really old, and some of them aren't updated, and it isn't all that you would think. Oracle Apex is very well maintained. It's amazing. It's an amazing tool. I wish it had broader acceptance outside the corporate world. But anyway, rambling. So, it's got version 1 down. With Scout, so then I'm going to move it and hopefully just try to get it out there. I don't care if somebody else builds this thing. I kind of want to see it exist. And yes, it is my top secret project. I actually won't talk about it. Most of the things I don't care if I talk about because the fact is these things are really hard to build and it's a lot of work. Okay, so let's jump over here to PowerPoint. So this is what I started most recently. And you don't need a lot of, fancy tools, Figma or whatever. You don't have to get in there and start designing the UI exactly. You're going to be somewhat limited in Oracle Apex about what you can build anyway, based on what is already available and how good you are with, JavaScript and that kind of things. You can obviously, there's things that I might not be able to do here that I want to do. I'm like, but it's not that important. Not for version 1. So what I do is we look at other applications out there and kind of get ideas and say, yes, I need that. No, don't need that. And so what we start with is, maybe on the left, this is your UI. So maybe over here on the left, doesn't have to be on the left. It could be over here, over here, over here. This is just helping you get a little bit better idea of what you're building. We're going to have something called data sets. And you'd have this list of data sets. And you might have some meta about the data set, like how many metrics are in it. You want to put something that's informative, important, and helpful, but that actually might be a little convoluted with a default widget in Oracle Apex. It might just be easier to put, formatting could get difficult, things like that. It's not impossible, but I'm not going to worry about it. All I want really is a list of data sets. And then I have /supersets. So a superset, that idea kind of emerged as I was looking at this. I didn't have that idea until I started to kind of lay this out. But I think a superset is important because if you have a lot of data sets, you're going to want to put all of maybe one kind in a superset. So you can just click that and somehow see all the data sets in one, presented before you. If you make it too hard to group and logically group things, and you kind of add friction to the process of creating data sets because you're like, another data set, then I'll have 1,000, but 500 of them are all the same thing, and I really want to look at those all at the same time. So anyway, but supersets becomes, we use the notes area down here. Supersets, not right, it says not in version 1. We don't need to worry about that. And that idea might go away. We don't want to spend time on it. We do need data sets. We've got to be able to add a data set, and then we need to be able to get to a data set, see the data set. So this would be the display area maybe, or this is the display area where you're seeing the data for your data set. And then you have to have some way of having data set settings. So what are we going to have there? Maybe the API token, maybe an option to share, whether it's public or not, and contact groups. Now I've already been rethinking contact groups and alert priorities. And so that's when I get off of here, I'll remodel this a little bit because I've made some notes down here already for that. So then data set settings are technically linked to contact groups, which have contacts. You have alert priorities. Here you're going to have your profile, billing. You need to understand, you need to have these abilities. Right now I haven't worked the Stripe API enough to do these things, and I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll have placeholders and come back to that, because I could probably spend a lot of time trying to figure out the stuff on Stripe. And, the reality is let's get version 1 out, free version only. Then we don't have to worry about billing. And the chance that I'll have, even 10 users in 6 months is actually pretty low. That's the reality. Go build something and you see. And if you do get users, you can get users, but then you got to keep them. That's called retention, or turnover, and I should say churn. Churn is the right word for it. One thing I've learned over the past 4 or 5 years of diddling around with this is how hard it is. And you've probably heard me before. If you've watched some of my videos, I talk about this. There's a podcast called Out of Beta with Matt Wensing, and I apologize that I forget the co-host name. I'm just more familiar with Matt. And, go back 2-3 years, start listening. And understand that Matt is somebody who has built a successful company and sold it, I believe, to DHL. And look at the application that he's built. It's very innovative. It's very good. It's called Use Summit. And then see how hard it is for people to really build a solid company, acquire customers, fight churn, build features people are willing to pay for month after month. It's very hard, very hard. So we won't worry about billing for now. Profile, change pass, change email, add two-factor. We're certainly not two-factor authentication, not in version 1. Light dark mode, not in version 1. Everything, we're just going to bare bones this thing. All we want is our MVP, just to show people. We really want to have a platform that we can begin to add features to. And we want to try to find the shortest path to build something somebody would be willing to pay for. And that's like product market fit. So you're trying to find your market. And another thing I've learned, who you think your market is probably not the right thing. Most companies figure product market fit later. They find out their market. So initially, when I thought about doing this, it would be my competition would be, say, would be Datadog. I want to build a better Datadog. And like 6 years ago, maybe there was a chance. But there's really not much of a chance to compete against somebody like them. Well, I would say 6 years ago probably wasn't even much of a chance. You get into what? Enterprise sales, the money it takes to acquire enterprise customers, the fact that they don't want to change, the fact that they've already got solutions, the fact that they really have like solution burnout. Like you come in and say, this is a better way of doing things. They're like, yeah, we've heard that one before. And they're really always just talking to those who are spending the most money on marketing and can handle long sales cycles. So is this going to be built? Should I focus on that market? No, I don't know who my market is. Other markets are like people that like to just collect metrics and stuff like that for like Arduinos and all that. That's another market. There's a company out there that does that. I like the tool they built, but it's far from what I need as far as I see things beyond that market. And it's really kind of tailored for a hobbyist market. So we don't know who our market is, but I know that I want to do some really cool stuff. I want to be able to throw data at this, and I want it to immediately start throwing up lots of charts, and then I want anomaly detection automatic, and I want it to be really easy to create my contact groups and implement some of the tricks I've learned over the years to avoid alert burnout and to make the information and the value very dense. So I want a platform that I can work with, that I can implement, my ideas about how to visualize data better, how to just how to do things better and prove that it works. So that's what I'm building. Anyway, we don't know who the market is, so we're going to get the MVP out. That was the long and short of it. So now what I have determined now, just looking at this, the latest kind of thing that I've thought about was down here, contact groups not exposed in version 1, only hidden, default group first. Well, that's not actually true, because what I thought about it, as you have a data set, you're going to want to add, say, users to, like I might have a data set and I say, oh, these 2 users are part of the contacts for this data set, and then I go to another data set and I want a different 2 users. Well, that would be 2 contact groups that I'd have to have in the back end. Or I would just have to add contacts directly to data sets, and the alerting is integrated with contact groups. Alerting is meant to send, right now in K2, is meant to send an alert with a contact group, not a contact. So I could change that and make it contact or contact group, but I don't really want to do that. I think it adds complexity. It works, it seems to work as is. And so what I want to do is go ahead on the back end, where you won't see it, is every time you get a data set, you get a contact group with that data set. The user will only go to the data set and add contacts, but what they're in reality doing is adding those contacts to the contact group associated with that data set. So that's the solution that I have there. And then as I thought of that, the lights came on and said, I need to do the same thing with alert priorities. So instead of having one alert priority group, which I think will become a problem as people have things that they want to prioritize differently, let's create, on the back end, we're going to automatically create an alert priority group for each data set. And so I'm going to go to the code now and begin doing that and get that kind of implemented and tested, not designing anything in the UI yet. And then we're going to think about this more and see if there's anything else I can build on the back end before I start working on the front end. So this has been a long video, and I would, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you're getting something out of it. My goal ultimately is to help other people build things and design things, share information, and I like doing that. And could I recommend K2? Well, only if you really are going to understand the code base, get to know it, and be willing to see it changed quite a bit as I develop things on it. But the need for a framework like this, it's very helpful. In fact, let me, well, I won't pull it up because I don't have the links in front of me, but one of the things I just saw yesterday was, I need to send, I need to be able to use, I want to use SQL to send a contents of a table well formatted in an email, right? So started looking into that, and of course there is a package in the Oracle Apex API allows me to do that. And someone on Stack Overflow had shown how they were creating an Excel file and putting it in a table, and I'm like, that's an API right there. I need that. I want that to be so dead simple. Here's the SQL. It goes in this generic storage table. I can look it up by key, and then all I need to want to figure out is how do I present that on the page so you can download files and stuff or send them in emails. So that's hopefully something I will be looking at, because when you get an alert, you don't want to just know the alert. You want to know the answer, right? And the answer is often some kind of SQL that needs to run. So when you write an alert, you want to say, for example, let's say you want to monitor, let's say you have a important table with not that many rows, and you want to monitor any time it changes. Of course, you could put a trigger on the table and have that do something. You put auditing on the table, but these are not always the best solution or easy. Sometimes we need a more passive kind of read-only solution, which is, let's look at the table every hour, every day, And now we would miss if a record got added and deleted, if you're just looking at the count. There are other ways to design your alert so that you avoid that problem, even if you're not looking at it very frequently. So let's just do a count, and if the count changes, let's send the contents of the table, and maybe there's a created by, and we'll send that as an email, and we'll at least have some idea. Did something get created? Well, the number went up, or the number went down, so something got deleted. That might not need a report, or you'd have to have a previous version or way of looking at figuring out what was deleted. But sometimes, I forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, I'm rambling. But anyway, yeah, totally spaced out on when I was going. So anyway, if you made it this far, appreciate it. 25 minutes, we'll end it here. Thanks.